Welcome back.
Episode 2.
Between two wheels.
Correct.
In this case, two of them that are different sizes.
The MULLET, the mullet.
So, based on outrageously high levels of watcher feedback, we're discussing the pros and cons of the mullet setup today.
It's true. Mr. Larson.
Yes, Mr. Lee.
What was your first mullet bike?
First mullet bike? Well, if we're going with first real mullet bike that was on purpose, it was my 2021 Santa Cruz Bullet.
Ooh, very nice.
E-bike. I had a couple of run-ins with mullet bikes like 23 years ago that I'm still working on forgetting.
You're talking 24, 26?
Yeah. The dreaded 26 front, 24 rear setup, which, if truth be told, I swore on many a grave that I would never ride a mullet bike again, and I've been forced to eat my words.
I did have a Brody Devo, very nice royal blue one for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And it did go down steep things very well, but didn't do much else great.
Yeah, I threw a leg over a Brody 8-ball for a while that I had.
Oh, there you go.
I think had that setup.
Yep, there you go.
I didn't ride it. I never possessed the bike to call it my own, but logged some hours on a Norco Shore, maybe from peak freeride times, that had the Aero Racing rear tire with a Sun double wide rear rim, which was the
equivalent of a dirt bike tire.
Weapon of choice in those days.
Yep.
You needed to do anabolic steroids and have a hydraulic tire machine to get that on and off your bike.
Well, you're ready to drop the flat whenever you want.
But you could do a lot of stuff and kind of get away with murder.
It's a true story.
But boy, those bikes didn't ride very well.
Yeah, let's fast forward to like what, 2020-ish? And that stuff started to sniff around a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I rode that Heckler in prototype mode before it came out, the original e-bike, and it was like mind-blowing. And then I changed my 5010 that wasn't actually a mullet bike into a mullet bike.
That's right.
And that thing blew my mind.
Yeah, you were hyped on that setup.
Yeah. If you're not planning on just going fast all the time everywhere, it's like just fun.
Yeah, like I must admit the Bullet was an eye-opening bike, like e-bike, so heavy-ish, but super maneuverable and so poppy and kind of fun, but with all the, as advertised, with all the benefits of 29-inch wheels. But boy, that back end follows you around and kind of makes life pretty easy on you if you want to have a bit of a party while you're riding.
Yeah, it definitely makes it so it's just like, running over things is easier, and it's just lower stress in my mind. Like it just makes the bike more fun. Yeah, maybe it's not going to be like a race machine, but like my dad bod is like not into racing. I just want to have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, outright fastest setup. If someone said what's the fastest setup, I probably would still say 29 front and rear is ultimately like the terrain managing, terrain destroying setup. But I don't know, man. If you take the time to set up your mullet bike and maybe have a little fuss around with your suspension to accommodate that smaller wheel in the back, I think it's close.
What is there a particular bike that you would rather have, or both? Like my option is like, if I'm buying an e-bike, I'm getting a mullet.
Yeah.
If I'm buying an analog bike, I'm getting a mullet.
Yeah.
But is one of those change for you, or are they both the same?
I think that'd come back around to like what the bike's intended purpose is. Like, you and I have discussed the possibility, or my possibility of maybe signing myself up for a mountain bike race next year. And I would strongly consider having like a mid-travel 140-ish bike in 29. Like just set up so it's super fast, and any potential loss of like poppiness or handling, I would just handle on my end of things. Because if I'm racing, I need the thing to take care of me because I suck.
Yeah, it's like tall boy, top fuel.
Yeah, tall boy, top fuel type bike for sure. I would happily have a 2.9 setup. and just run kind of way we did back in the day on our Blur TRs.
Yeah.
Like little tougher back tire, big brakes, shorter travel, and just have a bike that was like all about just A to B as quickly as possible.
The thing we always got to think about those, like if we're not going to be being dinguses in the bike industry, like what are you buying when you leave the bike industry? And
Yeah.
I can't see myself owning a 2.9 if I left, because it's like I'm just not doing enough of that to like.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Like we get into a Lord of the Rings situation where you need one bike to rule them all. I'm going mullet every time now.
Yeah, me too.
Unless something really weird happens. I can't see myself changing away from that opinion too readily.
And like I think, we're both, okay bicycle riders.
Yep.
And coming from a background of having like my first really cool bike had a 150 mil stem on it.
Yeah.
So it's like learning how to ride a bike completely differently when you got a 22-inch wide bar and a 150 stem.
Yep.
And now you're riding a bike like the Bronson I'm on, for example, and it's just like it's so different. And it's so confidence inspiring. There's the gaps that have made, like that's obviously a very extreme gap, but it's like I learned how to ride on something like that, and so then it's almost like a crutch with this new stuff, because my riding technique's definitely different than the new bikes are.
Yep.
And with the new bike going to the smaller wheel, it just makes up for shortcomings that I have, be it cornering or whatever, right?
Yeah, like I would say cornering for me is like as I move on in age and become an older mountain biker, the number of times where if I'm a little tired or feeling a little crusty, my cornering is just in the commode. Like I'm not,
Yeah, totally.
like
I get it.
I'm not riding the newer style bikes as aggressively as I should. I'm kind of letting it come to me, and I actually think that's where that mullet setup maybe helps me out a bit, because it's just easier for me to pop around and be Mr. Cool mountain bike guy still.
Well, you go look at some of these young dudes doing vids and stuff, and they got their like their chest out over top of the bar and doing wicked stuff.
Yeah,
and
they ride
like
off the front a lot.
way off the front. Whereas you look at like bikes we used to ride back in the day, you're trying to get so far back because you're going to go over the handlebar. So trying to adjust your riding style to get forward helps, but the mullet also just makes life easier.
I find it, I've read a few different things where people were sort of, I guess, some of the sort of supposed drawbacks of the mullet was people were having a difficult time balancing the bike out. That was a bit of a critique of the Bronson, like Gen 4 Bronson, was that it was hard to get the bike evened out. I'm not really sure I'm with that. Like I don't know if it's just because I've had the luxury of riding a lot of different bikes, but you get it set up and you get your kind of bike position the way you would like it. Maybe a light different mindset on the rear suspension setup, just to accommodate a little bit of maybe rear wheel hang up here and there. So I would maybe run faster rebound.
I wonder how much that is just wallow.
Yeah.
Where people get into, like, don't have the suspension set up properly for either wheel size, and then they're stuck in that middle part of the travel.
Some mid-stroke troubles.
Yeah, which comes with a lot of these new suspension designs where you can get hung up. And so if you're, if you set it up being 200 pounds and you put your backpack on and all this other junk and you're 220, it's like you're going to be stuck in that travel, and it's like the bike will just feel like it's grinding a bit in the sense when you're climbing, because you're too far out the back seat. The thing kind of wants to wheelie. Whereas if you get the right air pressure or coil in that, I think that goes away.
Yeah, I found even when I went to a coil on my mullet bike, I felt like it just kind of continued the raging success of that situation. It just kept going.
Well, that might go down as one of the all-time best suspension bikes. That
it's pretty hard to get too far down the rabbit hole in the wrong direction as far as like the bike is so good. Even if you get this, even if you miss the setup by half, you're still talking about a bike that is so exceptionally decent that it almost does what it needs to do, whether you do it or not.
Totally, yeah.
So
yeah, we're definitely in cheating type times. Like this stuff is all really, really good. So
yeah. But I think I would say that a lot of riders that I speak to that have their doubts about the mullet setup would be best served in just full pin. Love it. Just send it right in there. They'd be best served with a mullet, right? Like totally. they should have a mullet because it'd be easier for them to ride it. Like
totally.
You just don't. You don't have to. I don't feel you have to manage the bike as much.
Yeah.
Which is the opposite of what some of the articles and stuff talk about. They feel like you got to manage the bike more because there's some inequity between the front and back end. I actually disagree. I think it's easier.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit of proper tire pressure, get your bars right.
Yeah, you're talking about all the, like, you got to get your basics sorted for sure.
Yep. Yeah.
Q, did we have any questions come in on this one?
No, we have questions. The most comments were just people talking about the differences from like original mullet bikes in 26 and 24.
Yeah, which we kind of talked
Yeah.
about. The original ones were garbage and the new ones are awesome.
Well, and if we really delve into that, like those bikes in those days, I mean, we lived this adventure. That was just something that people did. Like that was an ad hoc change to the bike. The bike wasn't designed around that setup, right?
A lot of times they weren't.
You know, we're on a point where some of these bikes are on maybe even Gen 2 of the bike being a mullet, where the chainstays are built around that, like seat tube angles taken into considerations.
It was really interesting with when you hear the talk, the bike developers talk about extending chainstay lengths on mullets, which I was kind of like always thought it was cool that it was shorter, but you ride one of the new ones that's just that hair longer. It's still not as long as a 2.9. It's like, oh wow, this is way better. Like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you start to pull some of that stability into the mix with the maneuverability of the smaller wheel, chainstay lengths and stuff, and proper shock setup. I kind of feel like the rear wheel hang up problem is gone.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, if you are an old dyed in the wool like mountain biker like us, and you have had time on those smaller wheel setups, you know, I felt like it just made the bikes into disasters. Like the cornering was so wretched. The thing would just be like this and then just tip over and fall off. And
well, the front ends were super high because most of them were on double crowns.
Yeah.
The head tube angle was ridiculous. It's like way steeper than anything that you even find on any type of mountain bike now. So it was just a wacky feeling. Like it didn't make sense.
You put a 24-inch, even a big 24-inch rear tire, like Gazalotti Junior back in the day, or like an Intense tire. Those are big volume tires, but those wheels were not very big. Like they would drop into every crater, every balm hole, every ledge. Like pick somewhere for your bike to hang up and also pummel you.
Yeah.
Your bike was hunting those spots down on its own in autopilot.
I blame those treacherous bikes on the North Shore. All those jackasses, all you guys out there riding stunts, not mountain bike trails.
I suppose if you're a stunt guy, like that stuff was, was maybe a thing, but I don't know, man.
They were circus bikes.
They were circus bikes, and that's why that trend kind of came and went, right? Like, I'm trying to think about how long true mullet setups lasted. I mean, there's a subculture of dudes that had specialized big hits. Those guys are a special task force in the early 2000s, where if you were a big hit guy and you didn't have a mullet, you're probably getting, your taxes were getting audited, and you know, you're probably on a watch list.
Or you're still on a watch list.
Still on a watch list.
Yep.
But yeah, like outside of some of the real diehard guys that were into it on big hits, I think that it lasts like a season and a half, 2 seasons.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's mostly just for jumping off park benches. Like,
it
didn't really ride well.
I guess Carpale had it like in the Bender days, like because he had a mullet setup on that thing on his like mega bomb dropper bike.
Yeah. It's funny that they really shouldn't even be compared, because like by the time you go to the 27.5, the 2.9, like it's a real deal, like ripper machine.
Yeah, like so much other stuff has happened since those bikes, that the wheel size now is almost like this nice, like icing on the cake, whereas in the previous life, those wheels, that was like the big change, right? I don't know, this situation we have now is drastically superior in every way, shape, and form.
Totally.
And way more fun to ride.
Oh, way more.
Whether you're young or old, broken down or not.
I think that probably covers most of the stuff we need to chat about. If we have more questions on this, people should contact us via our socials or email or all such things. Thank you. And
yeah, we can revisit this topic as needed if people have pieces of this puzzle they want us to, retread, as it were.
Totally. We also need ideas for more episodes. So if anyone has good thoughts on what Mr. E and I can talk about, it'd be great. We love BSing our, probably 70 plus years of bike knowledge.
Yeah.
Some of it's been lost, but some of it's still in there. So
for sure, there's literally no mountain bike development that has occurred in the last 35 years that we haven't had hands-on experience with.
Yeah, since 1990, basically.
Like pretty much since Paul Turner trucked off to the bike show there, put a rock shock on a Kestrel. Like we've been there. So if you,
We have an RS one at the warehouse. Yeah,
I know. We'll bring that out at some point. We'll trot out some relics here so you guys can check it out. But if you've got questions about setups that you've never ridden or maybe didn't exist and because you weren't a mountain biker when they were a thing
or alive,
or if you just want to relive the glory days, hit us up. We're ready.
Yeah, we want it.
Good
All
day.
right. Thank you, sir. Toodaloo.
Bye.